Hi there. Welcome to Nancy and Nicole, Real Life, Real Talk. Thanks for joining us today. We're super excited to be talking about more of the stories that we tell ourselves about when we are wanting more in our lives. But is there sacrifice that has to go with that? And do you really have to sacrifice, or that just the story you tell yourself?
Yes, I'm excited to dive into this today. We've had a lot of conversations about this already. We're designed as humans to grow, to want more in every area of our life. And sometimes that's exciting. And other times, I know I have gone through this myself of, okay, I want this. But man, what is the cost? What do I have to give up? What do I have to, is it worth it? And sometimes my goals don't go anywhere just because I talk myself out of them for that reason. But I think there's a different way to look at it. I know I've been playing with the stories in my head. I know, Nancy, you have done that a lot as well. And we've got some examples of how we've learned to approach things differently based on how good can it get? How much easier can it be? And does wanting more always mean having to do more? We've got a lot to talk about in this episode today.
So much. One of the things that I want to go back to is sort of where some of our hardwiring comes from around wanting more. And I really grew up with the idea that everything was an either or, that everything was a trade off. You have to make compromises, Nancy.
Yes.
Thanks, Mom. I think there are things in all truth in all of that, but it is not the be all end all. And I think buying into that, it's sort of like you can't have everything, which also feels a little bit like don't be so selfish. It doesn't come easily. You have to work hard. And if you want more or bigger or better or something, you're going to have to work harder for it. And just that things are an either or. And all of that at this point in my life feels a little like bullshit that I have spent probably decades trying to unpack and pay attention at every possible turn in my life to go, wait a minute, is that really true? Do I believe that? And is there proof in my life that actually that isn't the case?
Yeah, I love it. I remember reading a book years ago. It was a fictional book. But there was this one thing in there, and the gal wanted to have something new, and she had to give up something. There was a cost to getting what she wanted. And in the end, the cost was she had to give up her fear and resistance. And it was interesting
Mm.
to
Mm.
notice. I know, right? It was like one of those game changer mic drop moments for me because, of course, I'm reading this story. I'm totally into it. And I'm assuming she's got to give up like her firstborn. She didn't have kids. But anyway, something near and dear, something awesome and good. And then you realize, yes, there is
Mm.
a cost, but sometimes the cost is worth it. She had to give up her fear and insecurity about her abilities. And when she owned her abilities, then she got what she wanted. And I mean, it's probably been 15 years since I read this book, and it has stayed with me of, like you were saying, it's a both and. There are changes. Of course, if you want something different or something new, there's changes to be made. You can't keep doing the same
Sure.
thing over and over and get a different result. But sometimes the cost is worth it.
Yeah.
And that's, I
Totally.
think, yeah, that's what I've been working on with my own stories of, okay, what is the true cost? And it might be uncomfortable. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to let go of fear because it keeps us safe in theory, but some cost is worth it. And to really get clear on what that cost is and to realize there are ways to make it a lot more fun.
Can we talk a little bit about sort of that mindset and story around sacrifice? Because I think I want to hypothesize that I think some of that comes from the fact that we don't feel worthy.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
There's a
Like,
worthiness there. There's also, I know for myself, there is, I'm not a particularly religious person today, but I was brought up Catholic. And I think depending on what type of environment you were brought up in, there was certainly a sacrifice. Well, I mean, there's a line that you say in one of the things, I am not worthy. Basically, please take pity on me, Lord. And you say it every silly week in church. It's one of the many reasons I don't go to church. I mean, they ingrained it early. So Not that we need to make this a religious podcast. There's lots. What anyway? But yeah, there is a worthiness aspect to it, and I think we all like linear things as well. There's an element of we want to know if we do this much work, if we give this much sacrifice, we'll be rewarded or receive a certain amount in return. And the interesting thing though is we all have our own definition, and I believe we all have that in our brains to some degree, but we all have different metrics and parameters based on that because some people, we talked about it before, work 80 hours a week and make 30,000 a year. There's other people that work 30 hours a week and make hundreds or millions of dollars a year. So
Yeah.
it's the story we tell ourselves. I was listening to something on another podcast the other day. Amazing. She goes, we talk about our limiting beliefs like there's something bad and we have to get rid of them. She goes, every belief you have is limiting. Just
Mm,
everything has a cap to it. The secret is to just decide which limiting beliefs work for you, which again, for me was one of those mic drop game changer moments of it's not about letting go of a limiting belief or feeling bad because you haven't, because everything's limiting. It's just about calibrating to the ones that work for you.
mm. Do you have any pinpoint in your life example where it first dawned on you that having more, whatever, not necessarily money or business or any of that, but just joy or happiness or satisfaction in your life w- wasn't correlated with effort? I'm guessing the reference for either of us would be, and my apologies to you people who are not self-employed or entrepreneurs, but often I'm just going to jump in and
Yeah.
say I do remember the slight shift of wait, those people make a lot more money, sell a lot more houses, have a lot more
Uh-huh.
business, but they aren't working harder.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I would venture to guess I have a friend, dear friend from high school who I will not name, but I did not work as hard to get almost the same grade in certain classes as she did for spending a significant amount more time. So just that trade-off of
Yeah.
effort for success, and I'm using air quotes because however you want to define that. Like when did you start seeing that maybe effort was not the the direct correlation?
Sure. I certainly I have all kinds of work examples for sure of being able to do either a higher volume or I always say increase my price point. It's my favorite way to make more money. I just sell more expensive houses. But even a non-work related example is with my boys. Wanting to be connected to them. I always thought I had to come up with these great grand adventures and we do them. They were always clunky as all get out, right? I mean, they were fine, but I just to be connected to my boys, I'm like, I gotta be the mom that like we do all this stuff. And they're like, this is ridiculous. The
Ah,
best thing, like the least amount of effort is when they are home. I work from home typically, but I work at the kitchen counter. And
mm,
even just this last couple weeks with them at home, we have had the sweetest conversations. And I feel more connected to my boys in the last couple weeks than I have in a long time. Just from having my laptop at the kitchen counter and just being there when they come in and out to make, you know,
mm,
food or do whatever. And then, the catch is I have to, you know, you called it bird watching one time, and I just thought it was perfect. Parenting is like I'm emailing and they'll say something that seems really like it's nothing. And I'm like, oh, they spoke. I gotta like put the computer away and go look at them and have this conversation. It's minimal effort. It's just me hanging out and being available so that
yeah,
when they're there and they're ready to talk. So that's my best non-work. Like I didn't need to come up with all these silly adventures, and some of them were fun, some of them were
sure.
a complete waste and cost me a lot of Legos and donuts to bribe the kids to get them to do it over the years. Really, all I had to do was hang out and listen and be present when they were in the room.
Yeah. Which is interesting because we talk a lot about sort of that phase in life where you sort of just have to grind it out. Like it really does feel like it's the only way to do it is give more effort to
Yeah.
the thing, whether it's parenting or work or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, it makes me curious about how much of that is also a developmental thing. Like it's just way harder to not feel like grinding it out is the answer when you're maybe in your 40s.
Yeah.
I'm old enough past that, so I don't really remember my 40s, but I think 40s was like the decade of grinding. And then 50s, you kind of go, huh, I'm looking around me and there's a lot of people who are doing just fine and they're not, living on 5 hours of sleep and a shit ton of caffeine all the time. And then, whatever that evolution is. Because I think there's a shift to both and from that
Mm,
either or. And I'm just, as we're having this conversation, sort of thinking about what happens to that story that is so ingrained on such a cellular level about, honey, nothing comes easy. You have to work hard. You have to make sacrifices. You can't have everything, to feeling like, well, actually, mom, why not? Like,
yeah.
she didn't live long enough for me to get to that point and be able to circle back to her and go, actually, let's talk about all those, that great wisdom you gave me all those years ago, because I'm not sure I still believe them. Because I do think, as you're saying, that referencing this last couple weeks with the boys is a perfect example of, you plan the big thing that's supposed to be this big, fabulous moment, but really, what gets you that meaningful connection is just being present at the right time. And not that
Yeah.
you can always be at the kitchen counter, because sometimes you got to be off showing houses or doing an inspection or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
sometimes you miss those moments. And I think, sorry, let me just finish this
Yeah.
random rabbit hole on is I think, tell me if you think this is true for anybody other than just me, which is I think when I'm in the grinding phase, which means I'm probably working more hours, I'm gone more. I feel like I'm missing those moments, especially when Molly was little. Oh my God, I
Mhm.
missed a lot of story time, bedtime, tuck in time. I try to be there for tuck in, even if I missed dinner, bath, stories, all that. So to compensate for that grind phase was I'm going to do, we're going to go to Disneyland
Right.
because Disneyland will make up for the fact that I wasn't here for bathtub last week.
And I think that's some of that's life.
Yeah.
Because there is a grind phase of life, in your 20s and 30s. And, you know, we both have had careers in real estate. There's a time when you get started, you're in launch mode. It takes time. It just does. You're not going to start a successful real estate career working 10 hours a week from the beginning of it. For the record, you and I both worked way more than 10 hours. But so I'm not implying that we are at that phase of life. But and when your kids are little, there some of it's just time. And there is an aspect of that just launching in life, all of those things do take time. But there is a shift. And I think that's what we're talking about today. There's a tipping point of a moment when you get to, and I think what we're talking about today is there is a moment when you get to question, do I need to keep doing this? Is this the right way to play it? Are there different ways we can approach it? And I've done the big things too with the boys. We do experiences versus stuff. Some of our big trips are, I do miss some of their things and have in the past. We're never going to be there for all of it, which is,
Mhm.
when you're a mom and you love your kids, or that's that's tricky sometimes. But yeah, that's something we have to make peace with. We were never gonna be there for all of it,
Sure.
right?
So when the story is shifting from either or, sacrifice, grind, to more of a place of both and
Mhm,
ease, has that experience, both for you and I know you do, we both, are
mhm.
involved with coaching conversations. Um, do you see that shifting from that to more ease and allowing both and all of that, that's an easy pivot? Do you, either for yourself or other people, see a lot of resistance in those moments?
I'm gonna say yes to both.
Yeah,
Some of
as I was asking the question, I'm kinda answering it in my own head.
some shifts are easy to make, but others, I actually think most of them involve a lot of resistance up front.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people end up in coaching, whether it's one-on-one or mastermind groups, because it's hard to do it on a regular basis. Because there is some discomfort because you're not because you're going towards something that is difficult, but you're just letting go of past habits that have become so ingrained. It's how do you break that pattern, have that moment of awareness. One of the things we were talking about before is we have kind of a spend cycle we go through in our house with our boys in baseball. The first part of the year, we're very thoughtful about how we want to spend our money. And then baseball happens, and it's just like the wheels come off, right? We're going different directions. Everything happens from 5 to 9. It's takeout, anything we can outsource, pay for, all of it. It's just like we got cash going all over the place. And then, because we're just trying to get through the season. And then afterwards, it's okay, let's take a deep breath. Do we still really want it? Do we need to? But actually, there comes a point I'm like, I actually don't want to eat out 7 days a week. Like we have been. So, but it takes a moment of, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to get some food and we're going to have food and all of the things. So yes, I think it's a both and. It's worth it, but I don't always believe it's easy in the beginning, even though what you're moving towards is better and something you genuinely want. It
Yeah.
just helped to do the pattern interrupt.
Yeah. And I think for me, some of that shift happens when I'm focused less on the big, grand
Mhm,
gestures or accomplishments um, that feel very tangible, usually external, like
mhm,
cars, houses, whatever the, again, material big stuff is. And I think it's a shift when I'm wanting something better,
mhm,
maybe more than more, like, and better being more meaningful, more connected. Sometimes it's just even feeling more connected to myself. It's
mhm.
not even necessarily about the other people, and the gestures that that f in that both and are really smaller scale.
Right.
Like, it's in that day-to-day having a conversation with your son when you're at the kitchen counter as opposed to, the premeditated date night, which I think I mean, I love date nights, but they also feel like they have, especially if you don't do them super regularly, there's a lot of pressure there.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna look great, I'm gonna be super thoughtful and attentive and charming, and so is my partner, and everything's gonna feel magical and take us back to when we first fell in love. I mean, whatever. Sometimes you're just still talking about, paying the bills and the car repair and the dog that has to go to the vet. Are you really going to pay for what, whatever, all those more mundane.
Non-sexy parts of life that
Yeah.
you talk about.
But I think there's a shift again, sort of when you go from big external to something that feels sometimes less tangible. I don't know if that
Mhm.
tracks with what you're sort of
Yeah.
as you're thinking about some of this.
Less tangible in terms of what do you mean when you say less
Yeah,
tangible?
I'm trying to think what I like when I think about like I want something more
Mhm.
versus wanting better or more meaningful.
Yeah.
Sometimes the better meaningful is harder for me to put my finger on. The
Yeah.
more tangible external stuff, like that's measurable
Right. Because we're talking about more in terms of a quality versus more in terms of how much. Like,
accumulation.
yeah, I sold more houses, I made more money, I did this thing that you're like, it's a trackable thing. You can spreadsheet it. We're talking about things you can't spreadsheet. I feel more connected to my boys or my spouse, or I feel more present, or I feel maybe even if it's work related, your conversations with your clients are going better and you're not having to take the 11 o'clock phone call because somebody's freaking out. Is that kind of what you're talking about when you're
Yeah,
referring to something? Or
I'm not really sure which I'm talking about. Like to be
okay,
honest, I'm kind of it's all fresh and I'm noodling on it in real time here as we're having this conversation.
I
I
love
think
it.
I guess I'm kind of trying to do the full circle of thinking about sort of what I said earlier on about that earlier childhood upbringing that was all about either or sacrifice, all that stuff. How I move through the world now feels very different. And sort of what were the moments where that shifted for me? Was I even paying attention that there was a shift at the time? Sometimes I wish I thought about stuff ahead of time, but sometimes you're just in the moment of it.
Into it. What's coming up is trust versus hope. Like,
Ooh, say more.
yeah. as we're talking about how good can things get, or how we can move through our day and I'll say have what it is we want, whether it's monetary or just the happiness, right? Feeling good about ourselves and our lives. To me, it's about can I ask for that and actually trust that it's going to happen
Mm,
versus hope. And hope is, I don't know, like trust means I'm inherently worthy and I know it's going to happen. And now it's just about figuring out how to move through the day or the moment or the situation in order to align with it versus hope. There's an insecurity, potential unworthiness there of, I want this. Can it really happen for me? Can it be this good for me? Like maybe I even know it's this good for other people, but can it really be this good for me? And I'm going to be a little bit, there's trepidation there if I'm kind of going to do the things, but maybe not all the time or maybe not consistently because I don't know. And I don't want to be disappointed. But I really do hope it works out. I have all my fingers
kind of on
crossed.
a wing and a prayer.
Yeah. Versus I trust that this is what I want and this is what I'm having
Mm,
and show up in a very different way. And I'm willing to reach just a little bit more than I would otherwise. Like I'm willing to let it be even better
yeah.
because I trust. I don't know if
That is
that.
a really great clarification. And I tend to identify with hope in a very positive way. So you reframing hope as actually being a little bit of like, I don't really think it's going to happen, but you know, I still kind of want it to happen, but I don't really trust that it is,
Mhm.
and all of the sort of other voices that go into that. That's really interesting. I appreciate that reframe a lot because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really, you come at it with such a different energy.
Yeah. Hope versus trust. It's night and day different.
Huh. Interesting.
So if you were going to take one thing and shift from hope to trust, what would it be?
Mm,
I realize that's a big question.
that's kind of a big question. As some people are aware, I'm branching out with a project of other work that I'm super excited about. And I would say a year ago, I hoped that it was going to come together. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really believe it, to be honest. I didn't have a lot of faith or clarity was a huge piece of what it was. But fast forward a year and a lot of pondering, stressing, doubting, all those other things. And a year later, I am definitely at that place of trust. I feel that it's so differently in my bones, and a lot of things had to shift for that to happen. But it just was also going to take time. I think I make gardening references often to these podcasts, which cracks me up because I'm so not a gardener. But, the whole idea of like, a lot happens when that seed is in the ground before you
Mhm.
ever see some little green sprout popping up out of the dirt. And you can't force that. Like just because you planted the seed yesterday and you are time's a ticking, I'm ready for the harvest today. Like you can't force that. And so there may be not only an energy mindset shift to get from hope to trust, but
Mhm.
sometimes it just takes some time.
It does, and I'm glad that you actually clarified that because I think most things do start as hope. I think that actually is a natural progression. So not everything starts as, well, I'm just going to do this and I'm just trusting it. If you can do that, rock on. But there are, call me because we got to talk. But uh, but there are a lot of things that start as hope, and then, but how can you transition it to trust? For me, I would say my answer is putting my voice out in the world more with the classes I teach, doing this podcast, and trusting my intuition is usually pretty spot on. I haven't always trusted it, but the more I kind of hope maybe when I get these nudges, they'll turn into something. But the more I trust and follow my intuition, it's pretty amazing things happen. So,
And you
yeah,
really can, in those moments of listening, tuning into your intuition. I do think that is where a lot of living from an either or duality to a both and is just powerful, magical. Pretty
it's
cool.
great.
All right. This has been a really fun conversation. You have challenged me in some good ways today. I wish I felt like I had, great pearls of wisdom and thoughts, but you just had me in the middle of it. I love that. So thank you so much.
It,
And to all of you listening, if you're still with us today, I thank you. And please comment, share, like, subscribe, do all those things, but really tell us what that some of this journey has been for you because Nicole and I love talking to each other, but we love hearing from you and talking to you even more.
Very
So please join in the conversation and we'll see you on the flip side.
See you next time. Bye.